Hi guys, welcome back to the Astro Imaging channel. Tonight's session, Josh is going to go over a recap of the Okie-Tex Star Party. But as always, before that, and I know you guys probably aren't checking this out because the eclipse is going on right now. So if you do see this, we don't mind if you have to leave for a few seconds to check that out. But before we go into that, as always, I am going to show off our image of the week, which belongs to Nate Brandt. And it is this cave nebula. Appears to be RGB. This is a really tough object. I don't have the details right in front of me of Nate Brandt, but Nate's welcome anytime to come on and share with us. Or if he pops in later in the session, we'll give him a chance. But it appears to be an RGB image, and the cave nebula is a difficult target.
I can give you the technical details, Adam.
Wouldn't mind, Josh.
He shot this with the AP130 EDT. He reduced it to f6, and he shot it with his Apogee Ascent A694 camera. The mount was an AP900, and he was guiding with a Starlight Express off-axis guider with the Lotus Star. He used LRGB with Bader filters, 1.25 inch, and it was 90 minutes of 10-minute loom subs. 7 times red subs, 6 times green sub, and 5 times blue subs, all 10 minutes for those. And he took it from Fall Creek Falls State Park in Tennessee, where he just moved, and he gave a SQM reading of 21.4 for the loom data and 21.3 for the RGB data, and he processed it in PixInsight and CS6.
Thank you, beautiful target. And as I said, Nate's welcome to come on anytime to discuss it. One of the tough things about this target is the dust in front of the nebula makes it appear softer, but that dust is really in front of the nebula, so it just obscures your view of it. And I think that's one of the processing difficulties in this. This target's beat me up a few times, and seen a few good renditions of it recently. So props to the people who've done it. Okay, so I'm going to pop right back over. And what I'm going to do now is hand it right over to Josh, who's going to give us a recap of the Okie-Tex Star Party. And I see a few people in the room, so we appear to be working. You guys want to ask any questions, type them right into Q&A. And Josh, I'll call him out to Josh, and we'll pass him right on. But Josh, I'm handing it over to you now. Go right ahead.
Thanks, Adam. Screen sharing okay?
Right now I see TAIC, our logo.
Perfect. Okay. All right. So what we'd like to start doing here a little more at the Astro Imaging channel is probably attending some more live events, and such as star parties. And I know that Alex is going to be out at AIC this year. I usually am able to make it to quite a few of the star parties. Adam goes to NEAF and NEAC, and we hope to kind of get more of a presence at all of those. And one thing that will be nice is that we can help share these events with the community. And the other thing is that if we can help show a little bit more of what goes on at these events, then we can hopefully get some more people to come out, and be a nice way to meet more people, and also to get more people involved in the hobby. And for me, star parties are just what it's all about. I absolutely love going to star parties, and I've now I guess I'm going to be going to 4 this year, and try to go to as many as possible. The ones that I really have started to enjoy are the Winter Star Party, Okie-Tex Star Party, and Almost Heaven Star Party. I've attended those regularly now. And I'll actually be going to Chiefland Star Party this year, coming up in November as well. So that'll be my first time there, and I'm pretty excited about it. But star parties are just great way to get out with friends and or family, and kind of stick to the astronomy for the week. You don't get all the eye rolling you get at home sometimes when you're wanting to discuss astronomy with your buddies or your family. And I have had very good luck with weather at star parties. Even this year in West Virginia, where there typically is not very good weather, was just amazing skies. A couple of years in a row at Okie-Tex of getting pretty good weather. And it just gives you an opportunity to kind of work out the kinks in your gear, but also to see what other people are doing, to talk to other people about what they're doing. And if you're just getting started yourself, then it's a great opportunity to get help yourself. So anyways, I'll kind of dive in more specifically to the Okie-Tex Star Party. This is, like I said, my second year in a row of going here. As you can see on the map, this is all the way over in the itty-bitty panhandle of Oklahoma, almost all the way to New Mexico. In fact, there is a town, Kenton, that's about half a mile away, and it's more of just a couple buildings than a town, but you are literally in the next time zone over if you walk for about 10 or 15 minutes. So let's see, we drove this, well, actually flew out and met my dad out there, but he drove from Pennsylvania, and it was about a 2.5 day drive with an RV. And it's located kind of in the middle of the desert, but also has quite an elevation. I don't remember exactly what the elevation is there, but I think it's something like 3,000 or 4,000 feet above sea level there. Pretty dry this year, and I'll get into the weather here in just a little bit. But just a really fantastic star party, and my favorite star party to go to. I love the atmosphere. I love the conditions, and I just love everything that happens there. So we're just going to spend most of the time tonight kind of recapping what happened, and who I talked to, and what was happening. And then if we have any questions or comments about this party or other parties, we can go ahead and chat about them. So the first thing that I'd like to do is share pictures kind of the field overall and how it was at the beginning of the week, and how it was as we were setting up, and then how it ended up. So we were fortunate enough to be given the opportunity to volunteer to go out there on Thursday evening before the star party, which started on Saturday, and help set it up. And we went out there, and there's probably another 10 to 15 people who were out there a couple days early to help set it up. We got out there Thursday night, but did most of the setup on Friday and a little bit more on Saturday morning. What goes into the setup is, I mean, you basically have to build a small town for a week. There's a lot of infrastructure that has to go on. Where this year was record-setting numbers. 560 people attended the star party. It wasn't 560 people all week, obviously, but there were 560 people there one time or another, and excuse me, certainly 300 or 400 people I think were there for a good majority of the time. But not only do you have to feed all of these people, you have to provide facilities for them, both for bathing and going to the bathroom. But one of the things I absolutely love about this star party is that there is power. Everywhere in the entire field there is power for you. They don't have RV hookups, but they have power for any of your imaging gear and computers and all of that stuff. And so that was what I was able to help set up this week, was running all the electric cables out to everyone. And it took a big crew, the better part of at least almost a day to get that all set up and sent out everywhere. And it really, to me, it makes the party much better, especially as an astrophotographer. You're not carrying your batteries around and trying to find somewhere to charge them, and really with that many people at the party, there wouldn't be a way to really charge all of them. So grateful to all the other volunteers out there to make that happen, and I was appreciative to get to be one of the volunteers, and look forward to doing that again next year. I want to just give a special call out to Mike Dennis, who is the star party coordinator, Mike Madden, the registrar and treasurer, and Dave Hunt's the webmaster. But Mike Dennis was just awesome guy. Grown to know him over the last couple of years, and he's just he doesn't get to do much astronomy while he's there. He does that other times of the year, but he is kind of up and at 'em all day, every day, helping people out all day long, and making sure things run smoothly, and just very cheerful the whole time, and just passionately enjoying every bit of it. Putting on all of the speeches that were happening, and all the different speakers, and helping coordinate with the food and the registration and the vendors and everything. He just did absolutely incredible job. So thanks again to Mike Dennis for helping run everything. So moving on to talking a little bit about the weather. Another thing that I really enjoy about star parties is usually you get all kinds of different weather, and this one was no exception. Although it was a little bit tamer than years past, it was actually quite nice most days. It was about low 90s, and sunny every day. There was a little bit of wind, a little bit of clouds during the day, but not too much. And then we were down in the 60s and mid 50s for a lot of the nights. We didn't have too much wind like the previous year until about the middle of the week, I think it was. And we had a couple days where the wind was blowing pretty hard all day long, maybe 25 to 30 miles an hour. And it reached into the night a little bit, staying pretty windy. But there were lots of opportunities for very steady sky, or very steady conditions as well, where there was not a lot of wind. We did have one exciting pop-up hailstorm in the middle of the week where it was pretty much really sunny, and then all of a sudden out of nowhere there's one dark cloud above, and it just started hailing like crazy on us, and probably lasted maybe about 10 minutes or so. But you can see they were about pea-sized hail, but it was definitely exciting. Lots of people scrambling to cover their gear since it was basically sunny in the middle of the day when it happened. But other than that, it was pretty mild, just a little wind, little hail, and mostly sunny and mostly clear nights. We actually had a stretch from I think it was either Saturday or Sunday through 6 straight nights of clear skies, and I think maybe one of them had a couple clouds squirt in for a little while, but even on the nights after that where it was a little bit cloudy, there was still pockets of clearness to image through and to observe through. So it was really a great opportunity to get a lot of imaging done. So as I said, not only did we get a lot of clear nights there, it's actually quite dark there. I think I read some other measurements of how dark the skies were that seemed pretty comparable to what I got of 21.75 SQM. I think it was a little bit lower than that on some of the nights when the transparency was mediocre. The sea wasn't super crisp all week. I think we had a couple nights where later on in the night, maybe around 3 or 4, it really sharpened up for a few hours before it got light. And since the star party is located all the way at the western end of Oklahoma and right at the end of the time zone shift, it would get dark probably about 8:30 or 9 is when you could start imaging, and it seemed like somewhere around like 6:15, 6:30 throughout the week was when you really had to stop. If you're shooting narrowband, you might be able to go to 6:30, but it was more like 6 or 6:15 that you had to stop imaging in the morning. But like I said, average seeing and average transparency throughout the week. Not great a lot of the nights, but quite dark and quite clear skies a lot of the week. So that was really exceptional to image with throughout the week. So another thing, I mentioned the wind here, and one of my buddies, John Love, who I hang out with a lot at these this Okie-Tex Star Party, and known for a few years now. He is the guy who actually originally designed these skyboxes, and the reason I wanted to call them out is because they were everywhere this year. They seem like they multiply. Every year we go out there, there's another 2 or 3 people using them, and they're just they're really fantastic. You frequently see threads popping up in the forums asking, "Oh, what do you do to block the wind?" and if you're going out for a night. And honestly, I mean, these things do not take long to set up at all. Even these double wide skyboxes that you see set up here, mine is on the right in the picture up at the top, and you can see the inside of my skybox over on the edge here. They take maybe 30 minutes to set up if you're doing a single wide, and maybe just a little bit longer, 45 minutes or an hour if you're doing a double wide. And they're just incredible. I mean, they stand up to super strong winds. They really help block the wind from affecting your scope or guiding at all. I mean, even in the middle of 25-mile-an-hour winds, I was guiding at 0.3 arc seconds, and that's just happened at multiple star parties now. So for anybody who ends up wanting to go to a star party, whether it's here or in Florida at the Chiefland or the Winter Star Party, or even up in West Virginia, was a huge help for me. These skyboxes are very affordable and very helpful. And I if you want to reach out to John Love, you can let me know, or you can see his contact info here. But again, they're just great. And the other thing that they're really awesome about is they kind of help with your lights, either your lights or your neighbor's lights. They help keep your computer light from ruining your neighbor's eyes. You know, most of the imagers try to put a red screen on their computer, but you still want to try and guard as much as you can from spreading your light out to the rest of the star party. And so it helps a lot with that. But in case somebody else accidentally flashes their light at your scope, it really helps protect that too. So it's basically setting up home for the week and imaging from inside your little shelter, and it just really adds to the whole experience, I think. And basically make your own office for the week. So we're going through this pretty quick, Adam. I'll make sure that there's no other questions before moving on and kind of starting to wrap up some of this.
No other questions, but SL9 Guitar was there. So he said it was a great party.
It was a great party.
And I want that scope on the left.
So I didn't grab a ton of pictures of all the gear that was there. There was a handful of vendors at this party, and there's you know, it may not be the I guess the most attended party for vendors, but I enjoyed the time with the ones that were there. And so you can see on the left here was the not yet released AT 10-inch f4 imaging newt, and this is due to come out before too long. However, they brought it to the star party because they were looking to field, you know, kind of feedback and questions and thoughts on the scope, and it sounded like they're also going to be coming out with a 12-inch. They gave a price estimate, a very rough estimate of $1,700, and they asked not to be held to that by any means, but that was kind of where they think they're living. That comes with the 2-inch GSO Crayford focuser there. And the scope weighs about 30 pounds. It did have cooling fans built under the main mirror cell there, and they had a little finder scope attached as well. To me, it was just absolutely built like a tank. The thing was very, very strong, and it was pretty heavy too. I think that it was every bit of 30 pounds, and you can imagine if you put a camera and a bigger focuser on there, you're probably looking more like at 40 pounds or something like that. It did have 2 Losmandy rails. You can see one on the bottom right there, and then there was also one on the opposite side of it. But it's an exciting scope. There's not a lot of affordable fast imaging newts in that size class available, and it looked like they were carbon fiber truss tubes, which should really help strengthen you know, kind of the body of the scope. I know some of the issues that cropped up with the other less expensive imaging newts were tube flexure and having the focuser kind of bend the tube. There's also it's a little bit hard to see on that picture, but there was the focuser is mounted on a metal plate up on the top cell housing, so it was not just kind of built into the tube, it's actually mounted on a plate to give it some more rigidity. So I don't know if you had any more questions about that, Adam, before I move on.
Well, first, actually, what I want to say is Dylan is asking if we're watching the Lunar Eclipse right now, and yes, Dylan, I keep on sneaking away and checking out my door and watching it. It's going on right now, and my son is screaming for me because he's watching it upstairs. But maybe I shouldn't have told him about it. But yeah, this I've been waiting for this scope since I heard about it. Like, I don't know, probably like 1.5 years ago. GSO has finally made what it seems to be made a Newtonian that's really rigid enough to handle a big heavy camera like we have. And I don't know, if this came from a premium vendor, this is probably an $8,000–$10,000 scope. But GSO's done it. It's a newt, so you use a paracore on there, a coma corrector, and you can have a nice field. One of the things I'm curious about, and I know Josh can't answer this question, is whether it can take the reducer that ASA sells, and I forget the name of it. Can't believe I forget the name of it because it's always I'm always thinking about it. but it brings it down to like f2.8. And I don't know if it can handle that, and you can collimate it with that, and it's really rigid enough to handle that. And you put a new focuser on there, I'd expect you'd have to replace the focuser. That is going to be an awesome scope. Probably like the best match to a CAF 8300 chip that I can think of. And if it can take the weight of the bigger chip cameras, then it'll also be excellent. I'm pretty excited about this.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it'll take a. I think it'll take a premium mount as well. I was discussing it though. You know, we imaged with the Orion Atlas with 30 pounds or 35 pounds of weight on it before, but always with longer refractors, and it was, you could tell it was just sort of borderline if it really wanted to be comfortable with that much weight on it. However, like I said, they had longer lever arms, so people are always pushing those Atlases as well, and that's kind of the I guess go-to budget affordable mount, and perhaps maybe there's an opportunity that with such a short scope like this that it would be able to handle it. So it'll be really cool to see, and obviously you'll get away with a little bit shorter exposure shooting at f4 and 10 inches of aperture. So it definitely built like a tank. I mean, that thing felt rock solid. It felt like a high quality piece of equipment. So
yeah, I'm surprised we haven't seen any people checking the prototypes out. I guess this may be one of the first ones, but I heard that there were some overseas. Just haven't seen any images yet. I could easily take the chance and be the first, but I'm trying to resist that urge.
Just throwing it out there.
Yeah, I'm just throwing it out there. Well, yeah, I was actually I'd pay for it, but being the first person to pay, if it's $1,700, that'd be amazing. They'd really be hitting a price point. But Newtonians are easier to make. It's just that the mirrors are easier, and I don't know. You see what they sell at the AT 8-inch and 10 inches for. They're so inexpensive.
To me, when you feel that scope, it will be shocking if they hit that $1,700 mark. I mean, I believe it since they were saying it that's what it could end up being. But I mean, it feels every bit of a much more expensive scope. It is, like I said, just built very well. It seems very solidly constructed. The adjustment screws for the mirrors were just high quality. Only complaint that I really had, the biggest one is the focuser. Like I said, even if it's rigid enough not to get flex, I think maybe that you'll be looking to get an upgraded focuser. But I think they somewhat expect that. I think they recommend it on some of their other scopes with the GSO focusers, is replacing them with a Feather Touch or Moonlight. So, and then it didn't sound like this was going to be any different in the story, but those truss tubes were definitely rock solid, and things just felt great. So,
yeah. And I think like the RC is about, is it 20? I'm thinking it was $27.95 or somewhere in that. So by hitting 1,700, they're really bringing the price down. If they hit 1,700, they're bringing the price down pretty much relative to what it costs to make the mirrors. That's what I think is going to be the really cool thing. But yeah, you're going to have to spend a little more on the mount, which maybe that's the case. Dylan's asking whether there was internet access at the party.
There was Wi-Fi this year. The Wi-Fi was it was a little bit better than it has been in years past, but not only was there Wi-Fi last year with a day to go, they turned on the AT&T cell tower. So there's AT&T cell service this year as well. It was not 100% reliable, but it was pretty good a lot of the week. So there was both cell service and Wi-Fi, which really obviously makes life for us a little bit easier as astro imagers. It wasn't good enough that you could be uploading images all week long. I think a couple people did, and maybe they had better phone service or something, but it took me about 30 attempts to get my first image uploaded, and all the way through when it was like 50 megabytes or something. So, but it was still good enough to definitely be on the internet and browsing and stuff like that. which maybe is good, maybe isn't good. I don't know. I tried to tell myself not to use the internet all week because not very often you get a break from it. But it was good. And to answer Dylan's other question, it's pouring rain here, so I don't get to see the eclipse.
Larry's asking whether Astronomics said anything about their new refractors, whether they're shipping yet.
They did not. However, I talked to a guy who I think he got to test out the AT1 or the AT130, the new one that's coming out or just came out, and had really nice things to say about it. And this is I believe it's a re-release of an old scope. It's based on FPL 51 glass, but I think it was a really well-loved refractor at the time, and it sounds like they're coming out with an excellent price point on the new release, and the focuser is also pretty solid on that, and kind of with everything else, I guess it's up to you if you replace it or not, but that was I think the guy's name was Max, who was actually using the original AT130 and then was able to try out the new one as well. So, but no other words from them on their new refractors.
Yeah, I think upgrading your focuser when you get a telescope is pretty much, unless you're buying a premium telescope that really integrated the focuser, it's pretty much a given when you have a CCD or some heavy camera hanging off of it. Cameras are just too heavy.
Yeah.
That's what it is. And the filter wheels and the OHEs, etc.
Yep, I totally agree. So right across the hall, or whatever you want to call it, this room that you're seeing inside here is actually where they serve lunch, and then they have a big tent outside that you go eat lunch in. And the way they have it set up is really cool. I actually think that I did not get the picture for that. Did a panorama of this room, but I'll try and upload that later. But they basically have tables that are set up, and there's like a rectangle island in the middle, and then there's tables that kind of surround it all the way around this entire room, which is maybe, I don't know, 40 or 50 feet long by like 30 feet wide. And so the vendors set up at the tables, on the inside tables and the outside tables, and you kind of walk through the aisle between the vendor tables here as you're going to get your food. And so you'll be standing in line to get your food for about maybe 20 minutes or so. And you just kind of get to take your time. And inside was this AT scope, and then let's see, John from Starlight Instruments had a solar scope that had a motorized pressure tuner, which was very cool. And then there was a couple of Daystar was there as well, and there are a couple people selling books and photographs in there. But what I was going to say is right across the aisle from this AT10 imaging newt was Howie Glider, and he was there with all of his equipment that he sells. And you know, I'm sure everyone knows Howie Glider and his collimating equipment, but he had his paralyzer, which I think is the new kind of big deal, and we talked for a while about that. And it was really interesting because I think the philosophy is that as you're trying to collimate your gear, you never really know if your laser is in there square. So you don't know if you're actually collimating your gear or not. And basically what he designed was this paralyzer, paralyzer. And I don't want to speak too in depth on it so that I don't get something wrong. But essentially there's two flats built into it instead of just a complete round. And what it does is ensure that the adapter is in there very flush and square to your imaging train or your observing train, so that you know when you're actually using a laser for collimating that you're actually getting it in there nice and square. So we spent a while, because I was talking about my telescope and some collimation stuff I had going on. But if you look at if you just Google the Glider Paralyzer, you'll see there's a picture that'll come up right away that kind of shows the corners that allow to make sure that it's sitting in there orthogonal to your imaging train. So I'll go on just a little bit and talk about astrofactors. And I spoke with Bruce quite a bit throughout the week and really enjoyed my time with him. We're going to have him on here for a couple different things on the Astro Imaging channel over the next couple months. One is he has a new mount that I don't think anyone here has heard of, and unfortunately I can't remember the name, but he'll be doing a show on it soon. But it was just a beautifully crafted mount. But the other thing that we spent quite a while talking about are the new QHY cameras, which was cool. And if anyone's been paying attention to the industry here recently, QHY has announced pretty much a whole new line of cameras, and they're going to be doing a 6303 based camera, and then I think it's a 16803 camera, and their cameras are going to have the filter wheels integrated into them now. And I think that one of them has the off-axis guider, but then the even more exciting one that is on the horizon that hasn't been announced, I guess officially yet, is that there's another 8300 base camera that has the off-axis guider and the filter wheel built in, but it also has a computer built into it. So basically, you don't need a computer. You can put PhD2 into it. You can hook it up to your telescope, and you can just image away with it. You put your guide camera right into the regular camera, and it's basically its own little standalone system. And those have been on the horizon for a little while now. We saw one that was announced in Europe, I think, a couple months ago, and this one, it sounds like it's sort of similar, but it's going to use 36 millimeter unmounted filters, and it does not have a screen, like a touch screen that you would look at or anything. It sounds like you would basically load what you're going to do into the camera beforehand, but it's also accessible via, I can't remember, I think it was Wi-Fi or Bluetooth, and maybe both, but I think it was just Wi-Fi that it was accessible by, and you can actually control it with your iPad or your computer, or iPhone, whatever you have for it. And it sounds like they're still maybe just working out a couple things with the drivers, but it's going to be very exciting, and I would guess at some point before too long, probably the wave of the future of cameras is keeping people from running all these cables back to their computer. If they can just hook it up to the back of their telescope and have the guider integrated into that, then you solve a lot of problems right there. So it sounds like the first one of those will be coming out, and I didn't get any kind of date at all from him, other than they're working on it, and they've had some test models available, and it sounds like potentially a couple more beta models will be coming out here soon. So really looking forward to the opportunity to see what happens with those. And let's see, John Joseph of Starlight Instruments was there for the week, and he didn't do I guess he was there sort of as a vendor and sort of as a guy doing astronomy, and I talked to him for a while. I guess he usually doesn't bring gear out there, but he just picked up the Paramount MiT mount, and so he was having fun trying to get that set up and running. But he came over and spent a while with me, and we actually looked at my TOC FSQ85 and possibly getting motorized option for that, and we discussed sort of that their handy stepper motor, which is really a great product and it has a very simple, elegant clutch built into it, isn't necessarily good to use on focusers that have reduction pinions, because they're bearing-based reductions, and so they have the opportunity to slip when you're autofocusing. And it looks like we didn't actually get the opportunity to try it out, but it looks like we're going to be able to put the Posi Drive on there. And the Posi Drive, I guess, came out earlier this year, and is been a great option for some of the people using like the Tech 140 and some of the other bigger scopes or with the bigger focusers and/or bigger cameras. And what it does is it attaches directly to the coarse focusing knob, and when it attaches directly to the coarse focusing knob, it's belt-driven focus or motor for the focuser, and there's no opportunity for slipping whatsoever. And I mean, the belt could jump teeth if you have way too much friction on it, but other than that, you can't get missteps or anything in there. So it's for people who have issues with and really need perfect repeatability on their autofocusing routine, I'm sold on the option. Put it on my dad's Tech 140, and it's just worked perfectly since the day that he put it on there. And sounds like we're going to be able to put it on the FSQ 85. And additionally, we even discussed the opportunity of maybe putting a 3-inch feather touch focuser on there. We still need to spend a little time doing some measurements and investigate it, but we're gonna see what we can do to put a 3-inch feather touch on the FSQ 85. They also just very recently came out with a feather touch that's designed specifically for the TOC FSQ 106. So they're addressing some needs that I think a lot of imagers have been having with those TOC scopes that have just sensational optics, but maybe pretty regularly questionable focusers, as we just discussed. You know, even on the high-end scopes, a lot of times you're going to want to replace your focuser, and the feather touch rack and pinion focusers are, while they're very expensive, they're also pretty much bulletproof and work really great. So so that was I think about the extent of the time that I spent with the vendors. So a couple of really cool and interesting new things coming out, and then like I said, Daystar was there. I didn't get to spend a lot of time with them. Explore Scientific was there as well, and so was Teleview. The one scope that I spent a while looking at was their 101 IS and their 127 IS scopes, which are also imaging refractors, and those things were beautiful. And just got a little bit of technical details on them, and they're basically 2 sets of doublets that are f11s, and those combined, I think, bring it down to f5.4, if I remember correctly. But I've thought about those scopes quite a bit off and on, and was really curious to see them in person, and they're really well made. I think that we maybe have one guy in the Cloudy Night forums who's using that MP101 IS, which he's putting out really great pictures with it. So so another set of a couple of really great imaging scopes to keep your eyes out on. Adam, I'm going to move on here if there's no other questions, and kind of wrap up and show some pictures, since that's probably what everybody's waiting for.
Dylan was quickly asking whether there were internet access issues, which I think we kind of covered, but
I don't think that there really were. I mean, it's just there's not a lot of bandwidth, and there's a lot of people on it, so depending on if a lot of people are using it at once or not, then the bandwidth kind of goes up and down. There were I think sometimes people have a little bit of issues actually signing into the internet. They have a little bit of security because they want to make sure that nobody's putting any viruses into the system. So you basically have to, it's like a 2-step process where you register to be able to get the internet access, and then they'll send you an email a little while later. Once they send you an email, then you can click on that link and actually go in and enter the internet. I know there's a handful of people who have some issues from time to time with it. I'm not completely sure if the issues that they have are from not being able to follow the steps, or maybe they have something going on with their system. But everyone that was around me was able to get hooked up after the first day, and was able to stay hooked up all week without much issue. So, yep.
I'd like to say the moon is pretty much gone, and my ADU count has dropped considerably. So I'm pretty happy right now.
Bottom of the clouds still look the same here.
Yeah.
Unfortunately. Well, like Adam said earlier, it's awesome, and I'm glad everyone can take the opportunity to enjoy the eclipse tonight, and look forward to anybody who's watching the show as a rerun. And feel free to contact me with any questions about this star party, or contact the guys over at Okie-Tex. I mean, they're really wonderful guys. I'm sure they'd be happy to answer any questions for you. So we won't spend too much longer. I'll just share a couple of pictures. This was a few pictures John Love was shooting out there with. He actually had a prototype scope too, which was an Explore Scientific 8-inch f4 imaging new, which was it was pretty nice looking deal. And I don't know if they've actually came out with that yet or not, or if he was just using the prototype and they haven't come out with it yet. But it was he was using a prototype. I'm not sure if they've come out with the actual telescope yet or not, but he spent the first couple nights working on his collimation, but then he was up and running and he got quite a few pictures. I think he got 2 more pictures that that I didn't actually put up here as well. So it's the power of aperture and speed there just kind of really blasted through quite a few impressive pictures, and that's all with one-shot color stuff that he did too. So that was really cool to see him get so much out of that scope. I'll share a couple of pictures that I was able to get. I had some very difficult challenges with my telescope this week, and so I spent the first half of the night pretty much all week just trying to test and figure out what was going on with the collimation with my new talk. But never ended up actually getting to figure that out, but I was able to still grab an image from the second half of the night, which was that NGC 1333 on the left there, and dark skies, and spending 6 straight nights on one image really helped a lot with that target, and was able to do some pretty fun and special post-processing to help the stars there, which were trailing in radially across the entire frame for the top right, bottom right, and bottom left. But the pictures like that definitely sell me on going out to dark sites for doing imaging. It just makes it a lot more fun for me. And you can see on the right, I was using the iris as kind of my test data, and never got around to fixing the stars in there, so they were super elongated. But that was, I think, just I guess 3 hours of luminance I grabbed throughout the week, just probably 15 minutes at a time as I was making changes to the scope and camera. But for only 3 hours of luminance, it was, again, pretty cool to see that much come out. One other point that I'll bring up from the week, and this was my old Tech 140 that worked with my dad on trading that over to him because it seemed like a better match for his mount, which is the AP 1100 there. You can also see on the bottom of the scope there is the QHY drive that I was talking about. I knew I had a picture of this somewhere. And you can see how this attaches to that coarse focusing knob. And it's a little bit bigger, but it also has just a real nice clutch that actually allows you to use the manual focus as well. All you do is unscrew this little thumb screw here and turn the knob, and then you can use the coarse focus, which maybe the clutch override doesn't sound like that big of a deal, but I guess at the end of the night, if you forget to rack your camera in, or you still want to anyways, and it take all day to have your focuser do it, and if you forget, then it's too late. Then it's really handy to have that to bring it in, and you just have to remember, if you rack it all the way in next session, to just set your absolute position to 0 so it knows where it's at. But the other point I was going to make in this picture is he got a trailer for star parties, and this is the second one. We brought it to Almost Heaven, but if it is in your budget to afford a trailer to travel to star parties, I highly, highly recommend it. It's just been by far the best imaging upgrade that could possibly be made. It just makes you so much more comfortable when the wind is howling or the rain is coming down. You're not out in your tent freaking out and wondering what's going on with your gear or whether your tent's going to blow away. And inside the skybox, your scope's just doing just fine on its own, and it's all quiet and peaceful inside the trailer. And we actually, because there was Wi-Fi, it was really cool because you could set up on TeamViewer and run the whole setup from inside the trailer while your setup was running inside the skybox. So it was like basically making your own remote observatory at the Astro Party, which maybe sounds ridiculous, but at the same time, it's made the whole system very reliable, and it was a very cool experience. So again, if it's in the funds, not in the funds for me, but I'm fortunate enough that it is for him, and it was a huge upgrade to the whole experience. And there's probably half the people at the Star Party had trailers, and it seems like every single person you talk to says the same thing. So if you're on the fence about it, it seems universally like astronomers love trailers, and it makes life easier for them. So that's all I have, Adam. And if there aren't any other questions, then we can wrap it up. And like I said, happy to take any questions for anybody that is just catching up on this some other night after the eclipse.
Yep, ask your questions now, guys, or we'll have to get them next week. Yeah, mobile office trailers makes it pretty enjoyable. Makes it a lot when the rain comes in or when you just have to go to sleep. Definitely helps out.
Yeah, it really does. And I mean, you know, like I said, these star parties, you get all kinds of weather, and when you're in a tent and it's blowing 30 miles an hour nonstop or 25 miles an hour nonstop, and it's not like gusts of that, but just but for many hours at a time, it's exhausting for you. You just hear that tent just flapping, and you're just waiting for the next gust to kind of tear your whole tent up, and you're sitting inside the trailer and you just hear this kind of little whir going by, and that's about it. And you kind of can look at the guiding on your computer from inside the trailer, and you're like, looks like everything's going well, so you're just completely relaxed, you know.
Dare I ask, did you do any visual observing while you were there?
I did very little, and it's only because I was troubleshooting gear the whole time. I fully intend to get into that more because we do, because you do have the capability, a lot of these star parties, to do this, to kind of set up and automate everything. And even if you're not doing it from your trailer, you know, you can use SGP and automate everything. And now that we're getting closer to having that all the way down, I've built a couple equatorial platforms and have a couple DAWs. My dad's working on a 17.5-inch DAW, and so we'll probably get the opportunity, maybe not the next star party, but starting next year, I think is the goal to do that. But that's another good point. I know we talk about imaging all the time on this show, but there are tons of really impressive DOBs there. All the aperture you could ever want. I think there are quite a few 20+ inch DOBs, and I think that I saw maybe 2 or 3 32-inch DOBs, and there was a lot of daytime solar observing going on as well. So I got to look at the sun a few times up at the Daystar tent, and also got to look through our neighbor's DOB, and our neighbor also had, the other neighbor had a C14, which gives a pretty impressive view as well. He had the C14 at native resolution, so that was pretty exciting to look through. I haven't looked through one of those before. So.
Yeah, I figured you'd see some big DOBs down there because there's got to be some Texans with some massive sized DOBs. They always like to have the biggest stuff in Texas.
If I understand correctly, if you really want to see the big DOBs, the Texas Star Party is the one to go to. I think there's more imagers at this Okie-Tex Star Party than pretty much most of the other Star Parties. Well, certainly all the other ones I've been to.
That's interesting because I know Okie-Tex is, I mean, pretty big just by looking at the numbers you posted, but bigger than any Star Party I've ever seen.
Yeah. I know that there's one out in California that they say is the biggest one there is, but I think it's like a 1.5 or a 2-day Star Party, and so it's more like literally a party that I think many people go to just to say they went to. I don't remember what that is, but this one's up there. I think Stellafane is one of the other ones that's really big. So.
Dylan's asking the QHY camera, does it have a title? And the prototype is the computer-based one, but I know that the Wi-Fi, or what is it, the web server version one is on their website. It's an 8300, something 8300 or something. You know, Josh?
If you give me 1 second, I can look it up. I'm not sure if he's talking about the 8300 based one or the new 16803 based one. I'm sure Dylan can do it the same. I did not get a name for the 8300 base prototype that was coming out, but I think they have a couple versions of all their new cameras. In fact, they announced basically a whole lineup. I think there's the QHY 16200A and the QHY 695A, the 90A. Then they have the IC 16803 and the IC 8300.
There you go.
Yeah,
they're releasing lots of new stuff.
Yeah,
that 16200 is supposedly a new chip.
Yeah. The other thing that was interesting, I spoke with Bruce about, is that I think that maybe for some time there was a little bit of stigma about the QHY cameras and their drivers, and maybe some of the issues that were happening with their drivers. Andy Glasso has worked with kind of helping push QHY a lot, and it sounds, from my understanding, the drivers are becoming far more stable, and the software is becoming far more stable, and it sounds like they're continuing down that path. And to me, that's really exciting because QHY really offers some very affordable cameras compared to some of the other vendors. And yeah, but there's reasons other vendors will charge more, and there's differences in quality and customer service. But QHY has definitely always been probably more accessible to a lot more people. So if they're not only offering exciting new options, but also becoming more stable with their drivers at the same time, that's just really exciting news. And to answer Dylan's question, yeah, the 8300 is the IC 8300. That's the dual mode standalone USB cooled camera. So.
Yeah, I agree about QHY. They've made off-axis guiding an affordable endeavor. A few years ago, it would cost you $1,000 to do off-axis guiding, but now with the QI 5-2L and some of these thin and cheaper off-axis guiders, you could probably get the whole kit for $500.
Yeah, even less. The camera is now $250 at Astro Factors, the
Wow.
QHY 5L2, and you can get the Orion thin off-axis guider for like $125. So you're looking under $400 now to do that. And I absolutely recommend it. I tell every imager if they're thinking about guiding, I think that's the way to go. I think it's where you're going to end up going. And with a guide camera that sensitive, you're not going to have issues finding stars unless you're really starting off at long focal lengths. So it's always recommended. Another cool project that Bruce was doing with that same camera was he built an all-sky scope. Put I guess a 180-degree lens on it and was using it to monitor the sky the whole week at the Star Party, which was very cool. So lots of opportunities with those very affordable and very sensitive cameras.
Definitely. And you can get creative with them too.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, Larry's saying he likes seeing how others set up their scopes and was wondering if you could explain what your dad has on the top plate of his scope.
Yeah, absolutely. I'd be happy to, because we've done the same thing, so I know it very well. So we've discussed at great length kind of in some of our other shows and the way that we want to mount our power and data connections. And so the route that we've gone here, and you can see up here on my dad's scope recently, is to actually mount pretty much everything up on top of the scope to make sure that you don't have tons of extra wires, going down from your scope to your computer or to whatever other boxes. So you can see up here. Can you see my mouse pointer, Adam?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so on the right here, this is the controller for the Posi motor drive. This is the Focuser Boss 2 controller. And it actually will control 2 motors at once for people who are using dual scopes or possibly they're motorizing both a focuser and a rotator. Next to it, you can see over here is the power pole connection hub, and so you'll have power pole running out to the camera here. You have another one running out to the focuser here. And then one up to the dew heater up here, and it looks like it was pretty dry there, so he must not have actually put his dew heater strips on there, but he has one running up to the dew heater here as well. And then behind this, you can't see, but you can see the cords popping out, is the USB hub. And I'm not sure which USB hub he uses. I think that he used to, and I don't know if he still does. I use the CarMax powered USB port, and it has four USB hubs in it, and it's a powered 12-volt USB hub, so that way he can bring power down to his SBIG. I think he's using the STT 8300 now, so he brings power down there. This one has the integrated guide camera, but he also brings down both the power and the USB to there. And he's got it's a serial cable that runs off of the Focuser Boss 2 controller here down to the stepper motor. And I think that's probably everything he has up there. Yep. And then of course with the AP mount, you have the through the mount cabling here. So he's got basically one power line and one data line coming down from the top up here. One is the like I said, obviously the power line, but then you have the USB hub, and that comes down here along with the cable for each axis, and then coming out down on the bottom down here, he has a little tray he built on the mount that's actually got his power supply. So he has, I think he's got the one PowerWorks power supply for most of his gear, and then he's got the whatever the one that AP recommends is. It's drawing a blank right now. Adam, which one do they recommend?
The Pyramid.
Yeah, the Pyramid power supply. Yep. So he has both of those down here on the bottom.
Gosh, is that a 1100 or a 1600? Which mount is that?
This is the 1100.
1100. Okay.
It was exciting. We saw a 3600, a handful of 1200s, handful of 1600s, and a bunch of 1100s out there. And Mach 1s too. There were a couple Mach 1s. And then obviously I had the Avalon M0. And then we saw that new mount that Bruce had. I wish I could remember the name of it. I think the guy who made for him was it's a Korean mount. So definitely look forward to that teaser. It was a very well built mount as well.
Does your father break it down to move it? Break it in two pieces?
He does. He's still trying to figure out exactly how he's going to transport everything. He's a woodworker, so he builds custom cases for everything. And he actually, for the mount part itself, he just used the foam packaging that the mount was shipped in and just moved that over into a nice wood box because the foam packaging for the mount was so good. Then he built a big box for the pier and the pier legs and the counterweight shaft and the and all the counterweights. And I think we decided that was probably a little too heavy because the box was almost 100 pounds on its own, and then I guess everything together was closer to 200 pounds. So that's still a work in progress, but it does break down the mount head whenever he moves it.
I've made that same mistake myself with trying to fit too much in a box. I bought a nice Pelican case. It was really awesome, but before I put anything in it, it was 40 pounds.
Yeah, yeah.
And yeah, my mount, and yeah, I considered the counterweights, but yeah, that wasn't going to happen.
It was interesting because there was sort of a turning point last year at the Okie-Tex start party because the weather was so the weather wasn't so brutal, but the wind was very brutal, and we both discussed it. We were like, it would be great if we just come to these star parties and use a real wide field setup, so there's just not that much demand on your guiding. Things will be nice and easy. So we kind of went into the off season of winter after the star party, both talking about that, and of course, as always, I changed gear a bunch of times, but I did end up with a super wide field and super light setup. I got the lightest mount I could, that Avalon M0, and my and the FSQ 85. So my whole setup I think weighed about 45 pounds, maybe soaking wet with everything on it, and he went the opposite direction and ended up with this, but he was able to guide great all week as well too. So it was, I think if you have an 1100, then maybe it gives you a little more forgiveness on imaging a longer focal length. So he went after the Polar Rings Galaxy, I guess NGC 660, which is very beautiful target and lots of faint galaxies in the background. So excited to see what he gets out of that. And then he also got a NGC 7331 and some of the IFN in there, and then spent quite a bit of time on Helix to call it the Flying Horse Nebula. I guess the upside down of the Wizard. And it looks sort of like a landscape when you do it in the Hubble palette. So
it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
That TEC scope is pretty big.
It is big. I don't know if you remember the picture of it on my Atlas, but it was almost comical looking on the Atlas.
Yeah, what is that weigh, the TEC?
I think the scope itself is 18 pounds, but then when you throw the rings and the 17-inch dovetail on there. I think it got up to 22 pounds, I think it was. And then, but you also have to, their field flattener, which you put on there, is the biggest optical piece of glass, I think, or like lens corrector I've ever felt. That thing is very, very beefy. And then you also put a couple AP adapters on there, and then an adapter to bring it down to that STT camera. And he's probably got maybe like 32 pounds riding on top of that, 35 pounds, somewhere in there.
All right. So he's only at about a third of his capacity. Actually, less than that, right?
Yeah, I was asking.
Quarter of his capacity.
Yep, you could throw 2 or 3 of those setups on top there, and you'd still be good to go.
Yeah. Apparently, I could put that on my Mach 1 and be fine, but
you know who does that is Hytham, has the Tech 140 on Mach 1 with his 16803 camera, and he says that he can do it, but you have to be very careful of the balancing.
okay. Yeah, I always figured it was probably a little bit easier than a C11 on a Mach 1, but I'm going to guess that people that have a TEC on a Mach 1 are a little bit more particular than the people that have a C11 on a Mach 1.
It's probably a fair statement.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Well, guys, I think the moon is totally gone, so if you have a chance, go out there and check it out. I don't know if we have anything else going on, but hopefully we'll see you guys at a star party. Josh, you have anything else before I sign off?
That's it. Look forward to one of these for the Chiefland Star Party coming up here in November, so we'll do another one of these in a couple months. And then definitely next week we're really excited to have Lloyd Smith come on and talk about Deep Sky West and his remote observatory out there. Yep,
Lloyd Smith next week. Affordable remote imaging has come of age. Sounds like a great presentation. And we will see him next week, and we will see you guys next week. Thanks for coming.